Hello and welcome to Gardening with Ben. This is our 5th podcast and we're excited to announce that we've got a professional microphone so the sound quality will sound a lot better. Thanks for those that have listened so far and subscribed to the page. It's always good to have returning visitors and also welcome new listeners as well. So thank you for joining us. If you've just joined us, feel free to start at the beginning with about who I am and how I got into gardening, and then continue through the episodes. Hopefully every day we'll bring you a brand new episode to listen to on Spotify, Google Podcasts and on iTunes. So remember to click that subscribe button and stay up to date with all our podcasts. Today's episode is going to be about planting spring bulbs. But before we talk about spring bulbs, we're going to talk a bit about what we're doing on our plot at the moment, keep you updated on how we're getting on with our winter projects. So at the moment, if you are following me on Facebook and Instagram, you will have seen that I'm currently building a picket fence down the side of my plot. I created a brand new area in the last few weeks on my plot where I've got 3 new beds and it's got picket fencing all the way around the beds and it looks absolutely fantastic. My followers gave me great credit for what it looked like. It still all needs painting, but I can't do that while it's wet at the moment as it won't dry to the wood properly. So I need to wait for it to dry before I can paint it. So as an allotmenter, I'm sure you're all the same. You have a wood pile where you just collect wood. If you see wood in a skip, you'll collect it. If you know a friend's getting rid of wood, you'll collect it. And you just end up with lots and lots of wood. And that's what's happened on my plot recently. And I've got too much wood now. So it's a case of sorting it out before it all rots and disintegrates. So I'm currently building a picket fence the full length of my plot down the side. Usually down the sides of my plot I have chicken wire, and over the top of my plot I have netting. That's to stop any pigeons from getting onto my plot, as we have a lot of pigeon problems, and rather than cover the individual beds I cover the whole plot full of netting to save having to keep taking the netting off to weed and to get to the plants that I need to get to. So I'm building this new picket fence to go down the side just to make it look a bit posher. If you can make an allotment look posh, that is. And I'm down the sides of my plots I like to grow flowers. This was the first year that I grew flowers on the plot, so I'm wanting to continue that this year. They looked fantastic down the sides of my plots, and fingers crossed I'm going to try more different varieties of flowers down the sides. And I thought if it's got a nice little picket fence behind it, it'll make it look more cottagey, if that's a good word, and it'll make it look a bit nicer. So that's the reason behind it, and obviously it uses up all the wood as well on the plot. So that's my project at the moment. As of today, I did half of the plot, cut the wood into pieces. I still need to do another half of the plot, but I'm not screwing it to the framework yet, as I've got to see if I've got enough of the same type of wood before I screw it up, because that'll help me decide how much space to leave in between each piece of wood, if you get me. It's hard to do it without showing you, but yeah, that's how I'm wanting it, to be honest. And then it'll be a case of creating a new flower bed down the side of the plot and relaying the paths down the side to make it look posh. So yeah, that is the plan, and so far so good. It's looking all right. I just need to I've counted that I'll need about 80 strips of this wood down the side of my plot, which is absolutely a lot. So I'll need loads of screws. I thought if I do all the sawing first, get the worst bit out of the way, and then it shouldn't take long just to drill all the pieces into the right spots. So fingers crossed by Sunday it will be finished and I'll be able to share that photo of what it looks like. If you haven't heard already, the place where I'm recording these podcasts is an app called Anchor, and it's totally free. They also put your podcasts on multiple platforms like Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts. Straight away, you can also schedule the time that you want it to go on, which is fantastic. There's also creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer, so you can record your podcast literally anywhere you want. You can also make money from your podcasts as well, with no minimum listenership whatsoever. So the more times it gets played, the more times you can earn money from it. And there's everything you need to make your podcast all in one place. So if you download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm, you can get started with your free podcasts. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about spring bulbs and why they're so important in growing. But a bit of history about me growing spring bulbs. This was the first year that I grew spring bulbs on my allotment. I planted them the last November, October time, in the front of my plot, which is the roadway where everybody parks. And I thought, usually I have some flowers of some sort which I usually purchase from the garden centre, like pansies or something. And I thought that would be an ideal spot to grow some spring bulbs. Not knowing much about spring bulbs, but I saw them on offer in the supermarket. So I purchased some hyacinths, some daffodils, some tulips, and some allium. So I planted all them at the front of my plot in November, and I didn't know anything about spring bulbs, so I thought I'll just plant them, see if they come. If they come, they come. If they don't, they don't. We have a lot of trouble with squirrels down on our side. I absolutely love squirrels. I know they can cause havoc and they can pull things up and stuff, but I do love seeing the squirrels down on the allotment. So I planted them. I spaced them out and made them look how they should. And come springtime, the front of my plot, what looks onto the road, looked absolutely beautiful. The smell that came from the hyacinths, the size of the allium globes, what came at the top, were fantastic purples. And the tulips, I didn't go for the original looking tulips. I went for the fancy looking ones, and they came out absolutely brilliant. So I went home after they'd grown and I researched them and the importance of spring bulbs. It's always good to know about the plants that you are planting. So one of the things about spring bulbs is that the spring time you don't get much colour in the garden. There's not much growing that blooms. So adding the spring bulbs will be the first bit of colour what enters your garden in the springtime, really. Just after all that snow's starting to go and you're getting towards the Easter time, it's great to see all the different colours from the daffodils, the tulips, the hyacinths, the crocuses. They'll all add some fantastic colour to the garden. And another main reason for having spring bulbs in the garden is that when the bees first wake up from hibernation after the winter time, the spring flowers are the first flowers that are out for the spring bulbs to help them get their food and to help them get some nectar from the pollen, what's in the flowers. So spring bulbs are extremely beneficial for the bees, as without the spring bulbs there would be no nectar around, no pollen around for the bees to get their food from. So that is one of the main reasons why we need to be planting spring bulbs. Now we are getting towards the middle of November, but you can still plant the spring bulbs now. Spring bulbs are extremely easy to plant in the garden. They usually say that they need to be the depth at least of the bulb times 3. So it needs to be 3 bulbs down at least. And you can grow spring bulbs in pots, troughs, hanging baskets, or in the ground. So if you're planting them in pots, you can put them towards the bottom of the pots and fill it up with compost and let them grow. And then once they've died off, you can cut them back, and you can even still plant flowers on top of where the bulbs have grown, and the bulbs will come back year after year after year. It's a worthwhile investment on the plot having spring bulbs, as once you've purchased them, you won't be purchasing any more for years to come, not unless you decide that you want even more bulbs. Now, that is one of the bad things what I did. Obviously, I saw how great the bulbs were on my plot, and wow, they were fantastic. So this year, the first year, I must have had about 50 bulbs planted, and that was a great display. But this time, I've gone full hog, and I must have bought at least between 1,000 and 2,000 bulbs for my allotment, as last year was a year when I realised that I needed to start doing more for the bees, as without the bees we wouldn't get the pollination on the plots, we wouldn't get the fruit what we're eating, we wouldn't get the vegetables what we're eating. They obviously help with the pollination to create more fruit and more vegetables. So the more bees that come onto your plot and enjoy it, the more you will gain from them. So I went out and bought absolutely loads of bulbs. I've got tons this year. Again, I've got more daffodils, tulips, hyacinths, lots more alliums, as I really loved them. They were fantastic. And I've even got some drumstick alliums. They're a lot smaller than bulbs, so I can't wait to see what they actually look like and see what they turn out to be like. So I've planted all them in my new area that I've created on my plot, where I've built all this picket fencing. They're around the edge of the borders of the paths, so fingers crossed in springtime they will look beautiful. And then my next year's plan is to buy even more bulbs, and they'll go in my main growing area plots down the sides where the flowers usually go. So in 3 years' time, that's right, 3 years' time, I'll have all the bulbs I want on my plot, and come springtime every year it will look absolutely beautiful, and the bees will be saying, thank you, Ben, we appreciate all these flowers, we do. And another reason is that I've worked talking to one of my other plot holders, and he mentioned to me that he's going to be getting a beehive on his plot. So obviously, as the bees are flying round on all the plots, they'll be going, come to Ben's plot, he's got the best flowers on his plot, come to Ben's. So that's my plan anyway, and that is my main aim next year, to grow even more flowers than I grew this year, and fingers crossed that will happen. So yeah, make sure you stay tuned on Facebook and Instagram and see how I get on, and share them pictures come springtime of what it's going to be looking like. So that is the main reason why we need to be planting them spring bulbs, for the insects and for the bees to enjoy and to help with the pollination. Yes, they do look nice. Yes, they look beautiful. Yes, they smell nice. But come on, everybody needs to pull the finger out, plant some bulbs on the plots, and help the bees out. That is my pledge for today. So, yeah, today has been talking about why the importance of planting spring bulbs on your plot. So thanks for listening to today's episode about planting spring bulbs. In the up and coming episodes, we're going to be talking about what to plant in November and what jobs need doing in November. So stay tuned for them episodes. Make sure you click that subscribe button to stay up to date with all the new episodes what get published on these podcasts. and feel free to share them as well, tell other gardeners about them. If you're not doing also, make sure you follow me on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and they are Gardening with Ben. Thanks for listening, everybody. Until next time, keep gardening.